Good evening. Welcome to the Wyndham Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. It's Wednesday, March 25th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. We're in the Wyndham High School auditorium. May I have a roll call, please?
Sue Accardi. Here. Jessica Bridges. Jody Carroll.
Here.
Marge Gavoni.
Here.
Matthew Irving.
Here.
Joe Kellner.
Here.
Grace Levitt.
Here.
Christina Small.
Here.
Ginny Woodman.
Here.
Maggie Soul.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, agenda approval. May I have a motion, please?
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Board discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next item is public input. Seeing as we have no public, we're going to move on to superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Wyndham High School actually hosted the One Act plays, and I know a lot of things are in disarray right now behind the stage, and so I apologize for there not being a flag there tonight. We'll make sure for next meeting that the one that's way back over there, we'll make sure that it's front and center for our next meeting. But they did have the opportunity to host the One Acts, and so we had schools from all over the state of Maine that were here performing, and from what I've heard, it was a great weekend, and students had the opportunity to come and see some plays. Unfortunately, our One Act group was runner-up, and so didn't have the opportunity to participate in states, which would have been great since we were hosting. But I know they did an awesome job when they did do their play. A couple things to share tonight. First of all, the Wyndham Raymond Middle School Building Committee will be getting back together again tomorrow night. It's been a few months since we've had them together. They will have the opportunity to tour the school site, and for many of the committee members, they have not been on site since we did groundbreaking, and so a lot of things have changed. A lot of the building is really coming along. We've been concentrating our time over the last couple of weeks, meeting with individual groups on furniture, trying to get a furniture order ready in place so that when you're ordering a couple thousand chairs, 150 or so teaching desks and things like that, the bulk orders do take some time to go to the manufacturer. But it's been a great meeting, or great set of meetings with all sorts of individuals, from classroom teachers to today we met with the librarians and meeting also with the music teachers. It's provided two things. One is that they've had a chance to look at their spaces again. It's been kind of a second check on whether or not we've captured everything, but also it's been a lot of fun because seeing the excitement in staff members' faces with the spaces they're going to be occupying in the new building. So I know they're excited to occupy it. I know we're still over a year away, but we've been spending a lot of time with that. Other pieces that we've been doing is, again, spending some time on the budget. We're still tracking really well in our budget. And tomorrow night, the building committee will be going over all the different change orders that have taken place. We'll have an idea of where we are overall budget-wise with our state-level contingency, our local contingency. Other pieces with the building is next week we'll be meeting with all of our bond rating companies, and we'll be starting the process to have our second bond sell 1st of April, which is the last piece of financing that will be for that building. I had a great question from our bond agent today on whether or not we're anticipating any large-scale capital debt next year, and I said no, we need to have a couple of years recovering from this project before we'll even consider anything large scale at this point. But all the documents are coming together, and we look forward to those meetings, and we look forward to finding what our interest rate's going to be. We had an outstanding rating last time. I'm anticipating we'll do well again, but that work is coming. Had the opportunity today to spend some time with the Katahdin program as they were doing some maple sugaring out behind Little Red Schoolhouse. The altitude students in the middle school had been doing a whole tree study, much like what Jed Bloom's been doing up in Raymond, doing tree study, been collecting sap, but Katahdin has taken over the boiling portion for them, and it was just fun spending some time with our Katahdin students today, and they've learned how laborious it can be watching steam come off of kettles as you do your your drawdown and also do your evaporation and all that. But I think the other thing they were lamenting today is they've had 65 gallons of sap, which is about 1.5 gallons of syrup. They probably collected another 40 today. So just when you think you might be towards the end, things keep on moving. Last thing for board, and I know tonight the board's going to hear from the last cost center areas, and we'll have the opportunity to start working through some budget. We should know a major piece of budget information tomorrow, which is the high end for health insurance, and at least gives us a starting point for where we might think we might fall within our rating. So that information we'll have tomorrow. I am hoping with that information that we'll be able to quickly turn around a version 7 for board members, and then you'll have the opportunity next week when you get into deliberations to be working off version 7. So version 7 will contain updated health insurance. It will also contain some updated pieces on, I know there was a position that we missed in version 6. That's in version 7 as well. And then other additional changes, everything from some slight changes in savings for paid family medical leave that we're anticipating that we might have. But then also we've been going through budget and looking at all areas. So hope to have all that information for you first of the week so that we can get that out to the board and consider that in deliberations. But again, we probably won't know our final health insurance number till first week of April. And who knows, maybe there'll be a surprise tomorrow and we'll know our exact number and know where we stand. So I think that's it for tonight.
Next is our student representative report.
I really don't have that much to report tonight, but yeah, that's it.
That's fair. We've been seeing a lot of each other lately. All right, board roundtable. Anybody for board roundtable? All right, moving right along, we're going to go committee reports. Finance.
Good evening. Finance Committee has not met. We will, however, meet next Tuesday, the 31st. Just to note, we have a time change. We're going to start at 10:30 and go till 12 in the district conference room. Just continuing my series of comments on the budget. Tonight, you'll hear from Wyndham Primary School, Raymond Elementary School, Manchester Elementary School, and the Katahdin program. Much the same. A lot of really great and hard work have gone into all these budgets. What you're going to hear tonight is no different. Generally targeting basically flat operations is what we're going to see tonight, with some small increases in some areas to support supplies and student learning. So that's about it. So look forward to hearing that tonight. Thanks to everybody for all the work on that. Thanks.
Facilities.
We don't have a facilities meeting planned, but the plan is to hold our, which we think will be our last meeting for the school year, probably around mid-May. Try to get a wrap up on where we are facility wise. And by the way, how that also lines up with the cost with the finance. But the other thing we do have, as everybody's aware, that we had created a playground committee due to the fact that a lot of our schools have playgrounds that are not quite up to par, so to speak. So there was an evaluation done on all of the playgrounds, and we did have a list of which ones needed the most work and when. So we do have a playground committee meeting next Tuesday at 3:30 at the Manchester. Part of that agenda is going to include prioritizing which for this go-round will be Manchester and pre-K. So we're hoping to be able to get some information as to what would be needed and what the cost. We do have a fund in our budget now for the playground committee, and that's what we have to try to work off of, because we naturally, as everybody knows, we can't spend more than we have. So more to come on that later.
Policy.
Sure. So policy met 3/23. So this past Monday, our review included more of the required policies prioritized from oldest to last reviewed. So we're getting there. We did finalize our work on KFD, which is our community use of school facilities and grounds policy, and we'll present to the board when we have a newly proposed exhibit that's been completed by administrators. Essentially, we wanted to pull some content out of that, and we want to put it in the packet at the same time as the finalized policy. So you'll see that in the coming weeks. We continued our work on DN, which is disposal of surplus property support services, and finalized for a first read for you for future. We also conducted a review of BBA, in Board of Directors powers and duties, and we reviewed this policy compared to the MSMA sample, and we'll present this for review, not for a first read. So stamp that one for review, but we'll put that in a future packet. And then we began our work on post-secondary options and current enrollment policy, IHCDA. We did work on this when it was marked up against an MSMA sample, and we'll continue at our next meeting on April the 6th. I also wanted to note I was remiss in not reviewing at our last meeting last week. GBO family care leave was in your packet. Committee reviewed this, and this is also a required policy, last reviewed December of 22. And we reviewed this, but there were no changes. We marked it reviewed, and that was in your packet from last week. Just a quick top line on that one. The purpose of that policy is to allow eligible employees to take limited leave for care for immediate family members in circumstances otherwise not covered by state or federal family and medical leave laws. And I mention it because as we continue to learn more information about PFML and how that works concurrently with GBN, our family and medical leave policy, we'll continue to look for updates and triggering events that would update that policy. But for now, there's no changes. So we've stamped it reviewed. And policy will meet again, as I noted, April 6th at 9:30 a.m. and our agenda is posted online.
Curriculum hasn't met, but they're going to meet again April 6th at 3 p.m. at central office. Next item is report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes of the March 18th, 2026 meeting.
Second.
Board discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, we have arrived at our 18 cost center presentations, and first up we have the principal of Wyndham Primary School, Kyle Rhodes.
Good evening. Can I put him better there? Okay. Sounds like a little small thunder. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Just kind of in regards to the budget for primary school, we're a maintenance budget this year. I was encouraged when I met with the finance committee to just highlight a couple of areas and the impacts of those budget areas. So that's what I was going to focus on. I'm certainly open to answering questions as well. And you've got my budget summary and request form. I'm actually not going to go into that. That's something I think should be fairly familiar to everyone because it has our school goals, which I've presented on already this year. But I'd be glad to answer questions as well about that. What I am going to start with is a hidden gem of Wyndham Primary School. And a hidden gem is something that some of us know about, but it's not a topic that's often discussed at the budget times. It's our new monitors. Our new monitors are a group of our staff that I think sometimes goes unnoticed. They're only there for part of the day, most of them. However, what they do for our school is amazing. I'll give you a couple quick examples. The other day I'm walking down the main hallway. If you've ever been to the primary school, the main hallway is pretty long. I see at the very other end a new monitor of two of our learners. And she talks and walks with them all the way to me when I'm on the other side of the building. And those kids are smiling the whole way. And you know that she took the time, that 30, 40 seconds to walk across that hallway with those kiddos. And I'm sure that made their day. They do that all the time they're there. They do special plans for kids that are struggling. They organize games so that the kids can have those, organized games experiences that they're not getting a lot of nowadays, quite frankly. They take the time to make relationships while they're keeping our learners safe in some of those areas that are so unstructured, the playground and the cafeteria. So I want to applaud them tonight, but also just say they are really a gem that doesn't always get noticed. But the way they keep our school running, we've had 2 times this year where we've had to evacuate during the lunch recess block. I don't have to worry about it because when we go back in the building, it's like business as usual again because they know exactly how to pick up, even though they had to scramble to get everyone out of that cafeteria and off those playgrounds into a safe area. So that's the hidden gem. Second item I want to talk about is bar. I'm going to give you a quick history on the bar work at our school. You know, it was a couple years ago when we were presented the opportunity from the DOE to write a grant for a 3-year plan for implementing BAR. Our leadership team at primary school said, hey, this might be something that our school would be interested in doing. We presented it before we even wrote the grant. We presented it to our teacher leaders and said, what do you think? They said, seems like something we might be interested in too. So we did some research, talked to other schools, called some schools around the country, just got some good information behind it. Rebecca Miller wrote the grant, and then we committed to a 3-year plan. Now, as you know from having Chris present to you, that the funding was only funded for 2 years, and we were on a 3-year plan. So there's money in the budget, as you know, for us to continue that journey. What does it offer Wyndham Primary School? I'm not going to do enough job of really selling it to you tonight, and I'm at least going to try because I think I haven't really learned all of the impact yet, because it's like the more and more we actually implement, the more and more I realize what impact it's having. There's some data, like for example, around chronic absenteeism. Compared to last year in February to this year in February, a 4% decrease in the number of chronically absent learners. You say 4%, school the size of primary school, that's over 30 kids. That's significant. It's the way we become more efficient in how we manage our meetings to support learners. They've given us really tools that we can use when we're no longer getting our coaching that we get every week. Our leadership team meets online with our coach. We get 4 coaching visits a year where she's there for the day to give us feedback. We get a report within a week every time that she's visited, and she follows it up with an online meeting, so that we're really getting that feedback about how we're progressing. And she's given us some really good feedback about that we're doing a really good job, which I believe we are too. I'm proud of our staff, the way they've really embraced it. Do we have it all figured out? Absolutely not. Are we at the finish line? Not there yet. But are we getting there? And are we getting results? Yes. There's other pieces though of it that I believe our staff has really welcomed, which is the social emotional learning component of BAR. We've always had that as a priority at primary school. However, now we have a consistent and coherent program. So when you think about having, any year 10 to 12 classrooms at a grade level, and having the learners across that whole grade level get the same experiences around SEL and our guidance program, trying to piggyback on it, that's powerful. So, and one of the things I've recently noticed about with our BAR work is we're catching better kids that might fall through the cracks. They may be a really good mathematician, and they may be really good at problem solving, but they're struggling with having conflicts, or struggling with having good peer relationships, but they're doing so well academically, maybe you don't see it. But with the BAR work, we're catching those, I think, now quicker and trying to do something about it sooner. And that's just good for kids. We've always had that whole child approach at Wyndham Primary School, but I feel like we've kind of really ramped it up with our work with BAR, and that we're able to better meet the needs of all learners. And specifically lately, I've really learned a lot that we're getting better at those ones that just might fall through the cracks because they just don't stand out, but they do have needs too. So that's BAR. And then the last piece is something that we were able to resurrect this year, which we've had in the past and had great success, and that's our AmeriCorps program. We have a full-time AmeriCorps volunteer. Her name's Paloma Burr. Paloma is amazing, but the role she plays is the family and student coordinator, engagement coordinator. That's her title through the work. We've partnered with Goodwill to have her. She's there 30 plus hours a week, just like a staff member in our building. She's working with small groups of learners. She's connecting with families to get them engaged in school. When we have before and after school activities, she's there. She's helping organize them, run them, encouraging families to get there. At the holidays, when we're trying to have those families that may not be as engaged in school as we want them to be, but we want to help support them during those times with things like food and clothing and gifts. She's making the phone calls. She's helping coordinate them getting into the building and getting those gifts we want them to get from the donations we've gotten. She plays so many roles in the course of our day in our school. We've been very fortunate. I wrote another grant for us to have a miracle member next year as well. So fingers crossed. But it's just it's been a really powerful person to have in our building as a volunteer and to really support the learners. She runs one of our after school clubs. It's low tech, which is pretty interesting. It's around storytelling. And so that the kids are having fun with that. She runs one of our Odyssey of the Mind teams. She is the person who has been creating the student newsletter that we put out every month. So she sits on a few of our teams as well and in committees. So yeah, it's just something I thought would be helpful to know. That was the three main parts of the budget I wanted to share with you tonight, and leave the rest for questions you might have.
Before we go to questions, just something I want to point out for the board on Kyle's cover sheet. So Kyle's cover sheet, which is version 6, is missing a staff member. There's a staff member that's out on leave that didn't get rolled with the budget. And so that person will be in version 7. So I believe you see there in kindergarten, there's actually an additional person that should be there. It's listed 9 on your sheet. It should be 10. I know we've moved some kindergarten teachers around, but that will be reflected in the next version. So this is correct for version 6, but it will change for version 7. And that was just when the rollover happened. It was somebody who was out on leave that wasn't in the count. So that may help with the question.
Okay, sorry, in line with that, Title II, the kindergarten teacher is not part of that, right? Did that make it 11?
Yeah, so there's a total
thought so.
of 40 teachers next
Yes.
year, 39 plus the one title
Okay,
teacher.
thank you. I thought so.
Questions for Kyle? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Our next presenter is Principal Beth Peavy of Raymond Elementary School.
Well, I'd like to first start with thanking the school board members as well as the community, because last year through the budget, we added my librarian was part-time, and this year she's full-time. And the impact for our school this year has been, it's allowed us, there's one day where we're able to use her as a substitute. And it seems to be the day that I'm always lacking a sub. And so she fills that piece, which then that equals to not pulling interventionists or Title I staff, which then means students are receiving their services. And so that's been an amazing impact this year of quite a reduction in pulling our interventionists, which in the past few years have been excessive. And so they are working with kids, and we're able to cover classrooms, ed techs, and other capacities. So I want to thank you for that and show just how beneficial that is. Primarily, I think Joe had spoken to that some of our supplies, that's a cost area that's increasing. It's always a sticker shock to see how much, supplies are these days. So there are lines where for classroom and counselor and office supplies have been an increase. But I'm also looking at increasing the classroom supplies, because our goal this year, and will continue for the next forever really, is looking at how we embed more experiences, hands-on experiences, intentional, playful learning. They just had PD on that last Friday and had hands-on themselves, hands-on activities, and how they can embed that. But with that, sometimes requires more materials. Often we can solicit and get parents to donate items, but I want to make sure that we have the materials available to them so they can move forward with this. Also, one of the areas in talking to Chris this year was PTO. We are so grateful for our PTO, who provides our classes, our grade levels, a field trip per year, and they pay for the buses and the trips. But with looking at more hands-on experiences and community service, busing is expensive. It's the drivers, it's now the gas even more so. So we have a student activities fund that's been placed in there to help support that. At the beginning of the year, fourth grade went to a local apple orchard at the tail end of the season to help close it down for them and prep for the winter. So they did, picking the last of the apples, doing some gardening and different activities. And that was our local apple orchard. So we'd like to be able to do more of those things in our community and not always have to worry about we can't do it because we don't have the funds. Because this is where the students learn the most and will remember their experiences at school. As far as for classrooms, last year we reduced second grade from 3 classes to 2. So that trickles right into third grade this year. So I have 3 third grade teachers. That will be a reduction of 1. There is a position for the teacher. That's an open position due to a passing of 1 teacher this year. And looking at our 4th grade class, that incoming 4th grade class numbers will be low. But I'm keeping an eye on kindergarten enrollment. So at this point, we have more students enrolled for kindergarten than we did last year at this point. So there will most likely be a shift of a position as well. So it will primarily be 2 classes per grade level, except for pre-K and possibly kindergarten. Do you have questions?
Jody?
I don't have a question, but I definitely wanted to just piggyback on the example you gave for the experience out at the orchard. My kiddo was part of that experience, and Charlie said to me, can we do more of that? He asked me. And it was really interesting. We've had some of the Maine Institute type of trips that come through with funding or invitations or things like this. It's a lot of work, obviously, to coordinate on the staff side of things, but they painted, they were outside all day, they worked together in terms of teams. It was a terrific thing to observe as a parent, and I wasn't able to attend, but that's the kind of thing, if there's a cost for busing, that kind of thing. I recognize we can't do it regularly, but it was so impactful for Charlie that he still asks me, are we going to get to go somewhere else? And it's not just the field trip where they go and play all day. They worked and they did things throughout the day. So it was a surprise. It was a delight for him, and he remembers it. It's not one that he'll forget anytime soon. So definitely wanted to just jump on top of providing some detail from his perspective on that particular
Well, and part of the goal in looking forward at in how to do this in our schools, because we do have programs, times are limited, but we discuss often students have high levels of anxiety, or they're not always engaged, and then we're trying to fill those pieces with mindful moments here, a break here, SEL program here. There's only so much time in a day. And research really does show that you can accomplish all those things when they are working together. The social piece, the language, they're going to engage in the activities, and they may hold the information longer because it's hands-on. So you're tackling more areas. And so that's, he's going to remember those pieces, but he also had to collaborate with the team, get along, plan, and do.
Anyone else? Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next we have Danielle Danini, principal of Manchester School.
Hello, thanks for having me. We have a pretty streamlined presentation of our budget. We are maintaining, it's a maintenance budget. We do right now we have a rather large 4th grade, which we accommodated by shifting positions last year. They will roll up into 5th grade, obviously, and the 3rd grade coming up is rather small. So what we're planning on doing is shifting teachers from 4th grade into 5th grade to accommodate the students. So there will still be 19 homerooms, full homerooms. It wouldn't require an addition of any staff. I'm keeping an eye on the enrollment. Like we're enrolling a new student April 6th. We had one last week. So we're really keeping an eye on that. If it should be, depending on how things settle, I may not come back to you for more in the budget, but may look at, if you look at the class sizes, I may end up needing to switch another teacher into the 5th grade, but it wouldn't be a budget impact. When I walk around the rooms every day, I do a head count like in my head. It doesn't look like there are 21 or 22 students in the classroom at any given time, because kids are going all over the place. Plus there's some absences as well. So I don't think that the class size of 22 next year is really 22 little bodies in the room most of the time. And that's within our guidelines anyway. It is creeping up there, so we're going to keep an eye on it. I did want to mention, as Dr. Rhodes said, we have a kind of a minor, it's not an addition in terms of staffing, but on the budget lines itself, there's a rather small increase. It's significant percentage-wise, but it's not big money. But it is, I could tell you when you notice the value of noon monitors, when you start the year with none, which is what we did this year. We had 0, and we were able to fill all 5 positions. And I think when Marge and Matthew came for a tour, I was so happy to introduce them to our 5 wonderful women who have taken the job because they love kids. They work 15 hours a week each. But the value of that is just amazing. They connect with the students, they keep them safe. They allow me to do, I'm in the cafeteria a lot, and the assistant principal Crystal is on the playground a lot. That's how we share our time. But there are other things we need to also be doing at that time. So it really allows us to do our jobs. And as Beth said, not pull other people out of their intervention roles or, ed tech support. So that's a little, it's a lot. So I really want to thank them. They're probably not watching this meeting, but if you know a noon monitor, hug them. The bulk of the proposed increase in this budget is really around supplies, and it's about a 10% increase, and that's supplies for the whole school. It's everything from, we buy our own paper. We buy our own tissues. We don't ask families, we don't give families a huge, please bring all this stuff to school. We feel like that's what tax money is for, as much as we can. Like earbuds, yes, we ask parents to buy their own students' earbuds because they lose them immediately anyway, and we don't want them sharing earbuds. But for the most part, we want to supply what the kids need, and we want it to be equitable. So we do want to increase that just to accommodate for the cost of everything that's increased from, like this week, we're on our last box of tissues. We'll get more somehow when I email Chris and say, we just have another order sneak in. So that's really the major increase. And then the last thing is a student activity fee that we've never really, I don't think since I've been here have we had that fee before. And it is for us to offset the cost of field trips. So we do, so for example, in recent weeks, a class went to the planetarium. Another class went to the Science Museum, and one of those trips, because of the gas and using the buses, paying the drivers and mileage, it was about $10 per student for one of the trips and $12.50 for the other trip. And kind of gives us a little angst asking families at this hard time to pay that, but we do want to be having experiences that are really memorable, meaningful, hands-on, and related to the curriculum. So we really balance that. Often we will ask for PTA grants, but with the size of our school, I mean, how many grants can we, really be fair and ask the PTA for? So with the amount that's in there, we would be able to offset each student's field trip by about $5 a year. It's not a huge amount of money. But if you're a parent, as a parent, I'd rather give $10 than $12.50. It's just that little bit making it easier. So I think that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
I think not. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just a quickie, and I don't know if the rest of the board are people who are fairly new to the board have noticed, but in all of these, there's a line item that every school, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it still pays $250 for an auditorium fee. And you can explain to the board what that's for.
Sure. So the Wyndham High School Auditorium is used by all the schools for different events, some more than others. And when the board, a previous board, several years ago, wanted to know what the exact cost was of education for different events. And so at that time, some of those costs that are realized, because it's a shared space, obviously the majority of time it's used by the high school, but used by others. And then how do you best capture that cost? So some of those costs are in other buildings to show, part of maintaining and using the space is there are fees and costs associated with that. So just give a true picture of if you have an individual building, what does it cost to actually run education within that building? Which will need to change with a new auditorium and new spaces that the schools will be using starting in 2027.
All right, last but not least, we have Rich Meserve, head of school for the Katahdin program.
Good evening, all. Do I have the honor of being the last cost center? Well, how thrilling. Typically would not be the case, but I was not here last week. I had the honor of being in Washington, D.C. with some of my students. We had a phenomenal few days there, and which bumped me to the company of these fine folks. So thanks for having me. Three very relatively insignificant items that I just highlight on the budget. I feel a bit silly since I'm asking for or recommending that we have less money in our student activities budget, especially based on what my colleagues have just pointed out, the importance of student activities, which we wholeheartedly embrace. But we had some costs expected, transportation related costs that we thought would be coming into play. They weren't. So we're comfortable reducing that amount, and then hopefully increasing our food line budget. That is something that we always run out of every year. Food is very important to us and what we do with our students, so we're hoping to just increase that a little bit. The only other item of note is our admin assistant is getting a bit closer to retirement. She wants to scale back her time to part-time, so her budget benefits will come off our budget, and I am comfortable with the reduction in hours in terms of her responsibilities, even moving forward with projected, hopefully increases in the Katahdin program population. I think we're still good with that reduction in hours for her. So that's about all I have.
Joe?
How was DC?
Amazing. Just finished writing a little bit of information for Mr. Pierce in the Eagle, and he's going to be doing an article on our trip, and I'll detail that some more in my presentation for State of the Program in May too. So it was a phenomenal trip. The Finance Committee heard this. We did really the bulk of what we were doing. The trip centered around was a veterans history project where we interviewed local veterans, put those packets together and hand delivered those to the Library of Congress, which in and of itself was an experience for our students. So that was great. Extended interview and time alone with Senator King. He gave us between 20 and 30 minutes before he was hustled off to an Intelligence Committee briefing. So, it was just a phenomenal experience for our students who truly felt it was life-changing. So thank you for your support in making our program happen and the ability for us to provide these types of things for our students. So thanks for asking.
So I see currently you have 22 students. Next year projected to have 23. What's like your program cap?
It's really about that. Unfortunately, we just don't have space to have more than that. You've been in our space. I mean, it's anything more than that is really congested. So we're hoping down the road to have a little more expansive opportunities to bring in some some more students because I wish we could have more, and I know more would like to be in our program.
Just a reminder for the board that Katahdin will be taking over the Field Allen School when the middle school closes, and so it'll be a great opportunity to expand out some space and not necessarily expand the program too large, but at least expand so that there's all sorts of large space there for projects and other pieces, and really right size space for that program.
Right.
So looking forward to that. Excited to being able to have you take over Field Allen School.
As are we.
Other questions? All set. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, folks.
So as that concludes the last of our cost center presentations, I did add an additional public input we had done in prior years, just in case anybody was interested, wanted to give their final thoughts on the budget. Nobody has shown up this evening. So we're going to move on to our own kind of first formal opportunity to deliberate the budget amongst ourselves. Chris, do you mind kind of starting off the discussion? I know we still have some, if you could highlight the placeholders we still have in the budget. There are still some things up in the air. And just give us a lay of where we are right now to help us, please.
Sure, I was going to grab a sheet, but I'm going to do this right off the top of my head. So if I get a number wrong, I'm sure somebody will correct me. But what the board has been reviewing, and now you've had the opportunity to hear from all the different buildings, all the different directors, all the different cost centers for our budget. And a reminder for the board, and also for the reminder for the public that may be watching, this budget is, again, one of those interesting budgets which has a percentage which is being severely inflated by the gift that we have from the state of Maine down the street and the new Wyndham Raymond Middle School. This is year 2 for a state bond, and for the state bond, that means last year they were paying interest on the bond, which meant we received $4.8 million to pay state interest. This year, we're going to be receiving over $10 million of state interest and principal, and that the way the state major capital construction program works is that individual districts take on the bond, the state sends us the money, and we pay on behalf of the state. So what it does do, though, is that over time, it does have an impact to your budget, especially a project of our size of $155 million. That first bond was $105 million. So we have a significant percentage of our budget that is just tied into construction, which again, for the local taxpayer means that it does not have an impact on them. It means money in, money out, and that is impacting our budget for this year, again, because it's principal and interest that's being paid. The administrative team, and I think you had an opportunity here at not only the finance meetings, but then also in the cost centers. They really took a significant look at their budget lines and looked at any time that they were adding a position, looked at where possibly can we repurpose a position. And I think you heard throughout this, there's very few new positions that are outlined within this. Additionally, they took a hard look at positions that are in the budget, but positions that aren't currently filled. And so there's a reduction of almost 10 FTEs, full-time equivalents, that are within this budget. A majority of those actually coming, 7 of which from Lisa's budget, in ed tech positions that are currently open, which are not filled, which is really, we saw probably the most significant reduction in personnel in Lisa's budget. With this budget, looking to our cost drivers, I shared this with the board. I'll share it again with the public. This is the first year that I can remember in all the budgets that we've done where what we're predicting in our year-over-year costs with health insurance being greater than salary increases. And I think if anyone's been following, reading articles in the paper, there's been a common theme across businesses and also across school districts is just the increase in health insurance and how that's impacting how we budget. So our year-over-year budget, what was presented to the board and what you have in front of you year over year is about a 4.9% increase in expenditures. And that covers the health insurance increases. That includes normal salary increases. And if we were in a regular budget year without any construction, right now you would be starting at a 4.9% from where you're at. Additionally, we have our first local payment for school construction. So far, the bond or the referendum was passed in 2023. In reality, other than the $300,000 that was factored into an increase for Raymond last year, we didn't pay any money in bond anticipation notes. And we've paid very little so far in construction, but we do have our first payment of roughly $1.6 million of local money for for that construction project. Roughly 1.3 will be for the town of Wyndham, and about 300,000 will be towards the town of Raymond. And those numbers are based on student percentage of enrollment. That's within our cost sharing formula, and roughly 18% of students in the new school will be from Raymond and 82% will be from Wyndham. If you add those two components together, what we now have for a payment, and if you actually put in for what our year over year is, we're right around 7.2% of an increase overall in our budget. That number is subject to change based on where health insurance falls. I mean, the good news with health insurance is that we budgeted 15%. We've heard the worst right now is going to be 12%. We'll see if that's true tomorrow when we get that initial number. But if you look at our budget overall, you have to add an additional 10%, which is money in and money out from the state of Maine. And so within that total budget of 17%, 7% is actually changes that include construction and changes that include our year over year. And again, that other 10% is money that the state of Maine will send us and that we will then go ahead and pay those bills on behalf of the state. So currently, you are looking at, if we look at mill rates, and as I had a great opportunity to meet with the Raymond Select Board a couple weeks ago, you don't set mill rates. Last year, we had predicted that we might have an increase in Wyndham and Raymond when the tax bills were calculated and when overall property valuations were calculated. Wyndham did not have an increase. In fact, the amount towards public education and individual tax bills remain the same, have the same mill rate. This year, we're predicting, and again, it's up to the town council and the select board to set these. We're predicting about a $300 increase for a $500,000 home based on the budget that you have in front of you in Wyndham. In Raymond, because the $300,000 that Raymond was bumped up in their local requirement last year has been reduced by the state of Maine. We're actually seeing less of an increase than what we saw in the past. And so for Raymond, based on increase in valuations from new property and other pieces, we're predicting it should mean relatively flat. Again, I'm not on the board of selectmen, and we don't set mill rates, and I can't tell you exactly what new valuations that their town assessor has brought in. But based upon what we can predict, it's about a $300 increase on a $500,000 home in Wyndham, and then it should be fairly flat in Raymond. The last thing, and again, I'll go compliment to our administrators and our directors, what you have, even with the 7.2 in front of you for a budget, is still coming in less as a starting point than even some of our neighbors who do not have a construction project and do not have all the different pieces that go along with those pressures with year over year. So a compliment, they did an outstanding job. I know the board will have an opportunity to look at other areas within the budget that they want to have a little more investigatory time, and that's how we'll get a chance to spend the next couple of weeks. And just lastly, I'll end with good feedback from the administrators on having the opportunity to meet with the finance committee over those 2-day-long sessions. It was a good opportunity to go much like they had done line by line. Also was a good opportunity for them to really talk through, here's the impact of my budget, here's where I'm seeing changes, and then an opportunity for them to then come to this meeting and then really focus in on the areas that are impacting. So I very, very pleased. They were pleased, and I hope that's something we can continue to do again next year through our budget process. It was very, very helpful.
Marge, you want to start?
I do. Chris, you said with special ed in Lisa's budget, she had reduced. How many are left? How many positions that are not filled are still going to remain? Because I always get very antsy about special ed because it's a moving target. So I don't want to. We've used it a lot. We've used a lot of the ed tech ones because they haven't been filled, so we've used that to backfill. But special ed always makes me nervous because it is a moving target, and if we need people, you know what I mean? I'd like to reserve at least a couple of spots, so if we have to hire somebody, we don't have to jump through hoops to do it. It'll be in the budget already.
I'm going to create a list here. That's something I would need to come back to for the
Okay.
board on. Lisa did feel confident with her cuts that she'd made that she'll continue to be able to do programming. But again, I want to double check with her and make sure as far as what might be remaining in the budget. The other piece is also just to add to this is that you're absolutely right. Special education is one of those items that we do see costs that ebb and flow, and there may be other positions with that may be moved around or retirements or other pieces and looking at reallocating of resources. But I will make sure they check and then I can report back hopefully by Friday in my soup notes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just make some comments. I was really, after having walked through this process a couple of years, I really felt that the administrators really did the work this year. I mean, our technology department was less, just was able to, set out a plan for what they were going to accomplish, how they were going to accomplish it, and proposing to do it with less money. Lisa really, I think she talked about making some schedule changes to say, yes, I can really do it with less people. People saying we have underspent this for a couple of years. I'm confident that I can do it with less. I feel like they really took the task of, how can we limit the increase knowing the other pressures that we have. And I just really appreciate their time and effort in that. There's obviously still a lot up in the air. We need to know the health insurance numbers. We're still, negotiating with the support staff. That obviously is going to have an impact. I am confident that the amount that what's in this budget will service the needs of our students. I am hopeful that when all is said and done, our community will support that. But if we get bad news on health insurance, I just think we're going to have a hard conversation about what the community is willing to support. So just wanted to acknowledge that before we have that number. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. And basically, I think it's just that, because I've done this for a lot of years, that until we have all of the figures, we can't second guess. We all live in these communities, so we all understand the tax impacts, some more than others. And I hope that people, if there's anybody watching, people out there, who are taxpayers, by the way, realize that this is not an easy task. It's not easy for the folks who present to us. It's not easy for the administrators, not easy for the board to basically say, okay, we're put in a position where we have to decide, can the taxpayers bear this? And what is best for our schools? Our job is to educate the students, and I don't feel we should take that away from them any more than we have to. It has taken a long time to build up what is presently in our schools now. As we know, as times have changed over the years, needs of kids have changed, needs of staff have changed, because that's not only felt by kids, it's also felt by staff. And our job is to support both of those, the students and the staff. but we also have to be responsible as far as what burden do we put on taxpayers. So I guess I want people to understand that we care. It's not that, we don't, nobody that sits up here takes this lightly. I mean, nobody. We never have. I know people think that we do. This is not like a thing we take, just fluff off. There is no fluff in our budget. I know people would like to think there is. We do not have an overabundance of administrators. We definitely know they're not overpaid. So I just hope that people will respect the fact that a lot of work has been put into this budget by a lot of people. And we'll go forward from there, and we'll just wait and have that conversation once we have some better figures too. Thanks, Chris.
There's one other unknown, which I forgot to. I pull up my list here for a reminder, though, is that the Appropriations Committee is looking, or Ed Committee did today have an opportunity to look at bar funding. Appropriations are looking at it. Michelle Brand and Kayla Evangelist had a chance to actually testify up in Augusta today. Also had a chance to meet with our local senators, local representatives. And there is some hope that maybe some of the money that has been added to the budget for BAR might be restored by the Department of Education for the final year of the grant. So we should know, we should know in the next week or so whether or not that's going to happen. The other piece that is still an unknown is, hear rumors on the wind of maybe some additional money through appropriations through to local subsidies. So we'll wait and see what happens with that as well, which, if that's the case, it would further reduce any possibility of taxation increases. So we know there's a very short window to wrap many of these items up.
Grace?
I'm just really glad to hear that that's a possibility of bar funding. I went to the advocacy day yesterday with the Maine School Board Association, and we had really quite a amount of time with the governor, and she asked specifically, who here knows about the bar program? What do you think of it? So I was able to speak directly to her very enthusiastically. So maybe that will help a little bit, but hopefully that would help, because I do think it is really quite a valuable program for our kids. I just would add that, kind of ditto to what others have said before me here. I'm amazed at what the administrators have come to us with. I mean, the conversations we've had here haven't really been conversations, have been very brief. The meetings we've had when they're presenting their cost centers, because it's really just, really just what is needed, and it's pretty much status quo. So the fact that there's any increase at all is because that's the world we're in. So again, along with the middle school. So again, I'm amazed at what we've got in front of us. Yes, it would be great if health insurance, well, I'm just going to hold my breath on that. But I do think that we have great programs for our students, and managing to provide all of that with this type of an increase is really quite remarkable. So thank you for all the hard work.
Jenny?
I was very pleased to be part of the Finance Committee, listening to the administrators, because although their reports tonight were very short, they were lengthy and in depth the days that we were with them. I came away with there are a lot of very responsible administrators trying very hard to keep this budget down. The facilities director really was fun to listen to, with the locked-in fuel prices and how much the new propane buses are going to benefit us, and how much upkeep there is on all of the facilities. So I commend them. I come from the other side. I know that anyone listening tonight, the taxpayers listening and hearing $300 in a $500,000 house, the people that own $500,000 houses around Wyndham, I think there are a lot of senior citizens out there. So $300 might not seem a lot, but on a fixed income it is. But as I said, I came away thinking that this is a responsible budget. So I'll be interested. I would love to hear feedback from people. I really would like to hear what people are thinking. I guess that's all I have to say for now, but I'm sure I'll have more. Thanks.
Sure, Joe and I are going to say some of the same things, but made a couple notes to add to Chris's. Chris did a terrific job, he always does, but some of the things that you had documented for us early and often going into this budget was that we brought over the surplus of $1 million, so $1,577,000 from other revenues from last year's surplus, as well as other revenues of over $500,000 into this budget. We did have a reduction in state subsidy of over $200,000 as well this year that we had to work through, which is not a small number in any of these conversations. So I don't want that to get lost in the weeds either. Chris talked about the increase in state valuation from Wyndham and Raymond, and the state determines what the town value is, right? And the formula then generates how much we can afford in these two towns. And because the state determined that we are more wealthy than we were last year, that resulted in a very large chunk coming back to the local share at over $1 million as well. So when we talk about some of these numbers coming in one at a time, they build up. And so if we're generating a 4.99% increase year over year, we've already insulated in those three things against something that's quite big. So we brought money in from last year and other revenues, and then insulated against less state funding. And so if we think about just the mindset of taxpayers versus I'm paying taxes to the state for my, groceries and gas and that kind of thing, just thinking about the tax bills, I guess, is what I'm trying to focus on. We also had that reduction in funding for the BAR program. So we've heard a lot about that tonight. If anyone's listening and don't really understand it, I think with this one, it was $150,000 we put into the budget this year to cover what would be the third year in for this program. And just a quick review on that one for anyone that's hearing this for the first time. Essentially, with this investment, it's already delivering these measurable results in behavior incidents. We've heard it at least a half a dozen times this year in workshops, and from each facility that's introduced it, improving attendance, helping us identify and support students early. And that means in gifted and talented. It can mean in any category. It's not necessarily just behavioral as well. I think by funding that district-wide coordinator, we're ensuring that consistency and accountability to each of our administrators. So they've put in the work. This year, we're going to pay to train somebody. So Lynn's going to go get trained, and then we'll have a train the trainer model. We use this in transportation as well, right? So we have people in the district as a system. The district tries to, which I think is terrific, train people so that we can own that institutional knowledge and not have to rely on funding for programs to continue something that we're using every day in schools. So from my view, continuing this across all 6 schools, where really it's a cost-effective investment that prevents the more expensive interventions later. And then we're protecting the gains that we've already made. So to me, that has to stay. And it's certainly, if we get news on that, and then going forward into the year afterwards, we wouldn't have that large 150,000 every year with the sort of that training model. So those are a few of the things I wanted to just point out on BAR, but as it relates to the increases, Chris talked a little bit about the insurance and the salary and benefits and the debt. But I also wanted to just highlight the opportunity for 3 propane buses. You alluded to the fact that there's a propane cost. Is it $1.67, Chris, per gallon? They use 100 gallons a week. I mean, we'll bring 3 more of those into the fleet. We'd be at 5 next year. And we think about all the feedback we've gotten from transportation on how much easier they are to use, less warm-up time, less fuel. It fits with the model overall of us fixing electricity costs at 2.5% for 3 years with the solar farms and some of the ways that we do air exchange in buildings, reducing utilities. I think about those big kind of checkmate moves around what we've done in this budget, the facilities utilities costs alone could just bury this budget. And I think this is probably what we're seeing in districts around us. Chris, you showed us a chart. We're at the very bottom, even with our debt coming on board this year, we're at the very bottom of an increase at 4.99. In our notes you gave us since 2009 that the average budget increase in RSU 14 has been 3.45%. And certainly respect the fact that dollars are dollars. I just opened a tax bill in Raymond and it was $1,200 more for the second half. So we haven't even put this as part of it in the reevaluate. So I understand that very practically. And then I guess overall, just again, wanted to just note that we had almost 11 full-time positions that had been removed before this budget even came to the board. So I think that if we were listening to this back as a member of the public and just trying to keep track, part of what we're trying to do with Finance Committee for Education and also really working through this is to just talk about the things, all the work that's already been done. We've done all this work in committees and workshops, and so much work has been done. But if someone's listening to this meeting for the first time, let me just plug into the RSU 14 budget and see what's going on. It's complicated. We hope to have another education piece from Finance Committee coming in the next couple of weeks to try to understand going into that public meeting, what does the budget look like on paper? And when Chris talks about receiving $10 million of funding, why does that drive our budget to 17%, and trying to understand that piece. So those are the things I wanted to highlight tonight. And then just, crossing our fingers going into next week. Those are the takeaways I had.
Yeah, thanks. I've got actually very little to add. I do want to also thank all the administrators that took extra time, as well as the members of the Finance Committee. It was a big additional time commitment this year to go through the budget process the way we did. I likewise find it valuable. I'm so glad to hear that everybody else that participated did as well. Learned a lot this year, continue to learn a lot as we go through this process. As Jody said, it is not simple how school budgeting works, the funding sources, how the expenses get allocated, and all those pieces. I don't expect the public to probably ever fully understand exactly how schools get funded. But at the end of the day, I am certainly understanding, empathetic, and respectful to the concerns the public has with making sure that there's good value for the dollar spent on education. I feel strongly there is, and what that impact is. I think it's also important to note that there was a lot of bracing for impact last year on what the school budget was going to do to local taxes. And as Chris mentioned, in Windham, notably, there was actually no increase due to the schools, due to the growth in Windham. We don't know that yet. So I think that's just an important unknown that we won't know until later on. I also want to just highlight that in this budget, so little is within the control of the board. Health insurance is not within the control of the board. The salaries are negotiated and contracted. That's done. It's baked, although, of course, the support staff contract is still underway, but that will be contracted. That's not discretionary at the end of the day. The financing for the middle school is not discretionary. It's been voted on. It's being built. It is what it is. It's locked in. There's about $800,000 left over that I haven't touched on yet. That's an increase. It's about 1.2%, but that also includes utilities. Utility increases are not within our control. The discretionary piece of this budget, and by discretionary, I mean spending a little bit more on supplies, supporting student activities, far under 1% of any part of this increase. That's the part that is reasonably within our control, I would say. So I think that's important to note, that so much of this is fixed. I think about where we would have to go should we not be able to accept what's in front of us tonight, both at the board level and the public. And I cannot think in good faith of any lever that could be pulled that wouldn't degrade student experience. And I think that's important to note. I think we need to continue to prioritize that. I don't want to have to go and look at things like class sizes, think about deferring maintenance on our facilities and things like that, things that would degrade the experience of students and our staff. I think it's incumbent upon all of us as board members to do what we can to educate our neighbors, to help support this budget. And again, I'll just end by once again thanking everybody that's participated to make this happen. This was a lot of work. There were a lot of hard decisions by the administrators to get us here. Should be proud of what they accomplished and presented to us, and hopefully we as a board can support it. Thank you.
Any final thoughts to wrap up this conversation for tonight? All right. We can move on to policies. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the second reading of policy JLCB, immunization of students.
Second.
Public comment, board discussion. All those in favor? Motion carries. Next policy.
I move to approve the second reading of policy JLCC, communicable infectious diseases.
Second.
Public comment, board discussion. All those in favor? Motion carries. All right.
Ready?
Let's adjourn.
I move to adjourn the regular meeting and adjourn to workshop.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Our next meeting will be April 1st at Wyndham High School at 6:30 p.m.